Okay, friends and neighbors, DK here with Mr. V Amps, and we have a Kustom KXB20. This would be a keyboard amp, and it's new, almost. It's never been used for anything. It was shipped new to the music store, and when they went to plug it in and make sound with it, it didn't make sound. So Kustom was contacted and said, "Hey, don't worry about it," and just wrote it off of the order instead of actually bothering to fix it or recall it. So must not cost too much to make. So if I turn it on, the light should turn on. Let me go plug in my power strip. Duh. Electricity, it makes things turn on. I turned it on and looked at it earlier. Okay, there we go. Now we plugged in our power strip, and we turn on our amplifier and we get a blue light. That's good, right? Blue light's on, but speaker doesn't thump, speaker doesn't bop. I already loosened that attaches with Velcro. So, I mean, our speaker's there, but it's not making any sound at all. So, I'm going to have to pull the head out, and to pull the head out of the back, I'm going to have to disconnect. Oh, hold on. Did I hear it go thump when I turned it off? Yes. Okay, so I did hear it thump when I turned it off. So that's interesting. So at least it's trying. Let's see. Input. Nothing. Input 2. Nothing. Okay, so... But when I turned it off, it did... It does give a little bit of a thump. So anyway, we'll have to take the speaker out because this one has a sealed chamber, so I got to disconnect the speaker so I can slide the others out of the back. We'll see what gives. Okay, so I pulled this out, and it looks nice and pristine, don't it? So I just started poking at things. It's off, and besides, even if it was on, this would be less than 50 volts. I think what's the transformer here is 15 volts, so I'm be looking at 20 volts. Started poking, and look at that. Dink, 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 dink. This is like free floating. This capacitor right here is just flopping in the breeze. Is it because it's desoldered? It is desoldered. So this capacitor right here was probably really poorly soldered at the factory, and there's your dinner. Hi, Terrell. You don't know me. Alright, I think dude's actually from our state, though. Alright, so I'm going to unscrew these two for the heatsink and then pop the nuts off these here. And we're just going to resolder that capacitor there and maybe reflow any other joints that look like puke. Okay, so our flapping in the breeze capacitor over here appears to have broken its traces on the circuit board. And at least this one over here. There's one that goes here and one that goes back to here. So I think what we'll try to do is we'll try to get the capacitor as low and tight to the board as we can so it physically kind of clanks itself on the board, and then we'll touch that up with a bodge wire. We'll put 2 bodgers in there, and then that should complete the circuit and enable this to go back into service. That sucks, man. The parcel service must have really dropped that. Either that or whoever was packing it must have been abusive. I don't know, man. But that's a trip. Okay, so that capacitor had just somehow got shaken to the point that it tore the trace that goes to that op amp and the trace that goes to that resistor over there. So op amp resistors, there were 2 traces between those 2 points that had to be fixed. We fixed it on the back with some bodges there. What do I use for bodges? Use wire, or I'll use like cut leads of resistors or capacitors or whatever. That's what I use this time. And that effectively, you know, remakes the connection that was broken. And we'll put this back together. We'll put this part back together enough to test it, and then we'll see if it works. Okay, so I just set its speaker up there on the bench, and I brought, you know, I put enough on here to successfully test it. So Let's turn it on now. Let's turn the volume and the pots and stuff down. Let's see if it works now. We're about to find out. Dun dun dun. Okay, so now the speaker actually went bonk like I would expect it to. And when I turn it up, I'm hearing a little hiss or hum. So I think that was all that we had to do. Now where in the heck is my cable? Let's get a cable and we'll touch it on the input here. Just a finger on the input cable. Oh yeah. Alright. Bass. Oh yeah, that's actually fun to look at that speaker. There, we'll show you that amusement. You ready? Let's zoom in on the speaker. We have to do something amusing on this channel. I feel like I just crank through repairs like, you know, nobody's business. So let's watch the speaker bounce. Yay. Okay, low mid. That's interesting. We got a crackly pot on this amp? Seriously? Do we really? I don't think so. I think that's actually a grounding thing because I have these unbolted, because when I'm turning it without that, yeah. Yeah, it's fine. It works now. So we can put this one back together, and we saved it from the trash bin. I only had the ground screw here on this low mid pot, which was the one that was making the cracky noises, and I don't even have it tight, so probably just a grounding thing. I don't think this is going to need any pot service or anything like that. So get it back together. Okay, so our Kustom KXB 20, which is a 20 watt 12-inch speaker keyboard amp, came in not working. We found that somehow that capacitor had busted itself loose off the board and tore 2 traces. That cap doesn't weigh that much, but I mean, I guess it is a little heavier than some other, like a resistor, but my gosh, what did the parcel service do? I mean, drop a well-protected box a long distance, or did, you know, I don't know, did Han Chen, you know, stick his thumb on it and drive it down while he was putting the board in? I don't know. Well, whatever, it's fixed now, so one down and a bunch more to go. Okay, so next up on the Repair-A-Thon is a Yamaha HY10G, I think it's HY10G, yeah, HY-10G Budokan. I don't know why they decided to call this Budokan. I think I know that's like a place in Japan where, like, what, Cheap Trick recorded their record or whatever. It was cool. Okay, so we turn it on and it does no sound. No sound. Okay, there's no sound, but let's try. There's a headphone jack, so let's listen to the headphone jack and see if I hear any sound there. Because maybe if I do, that changes the mojo here, what we got. Ooh, that headphone jack's just jangling in there. And I don't hear nothing in it, but you know what? That just waggling around there, I think we're on to something with that headphone jack. Alright, let's see what's going on. Okay, so quick check says the speaker is not blown. That's good. But that headphone jack being a total rattle box in there, I think that might be our meal ticket, my friends. So let's find out what we got on this Yamaha. Right, let's see. Come on, play ball. Is that all that holds that in there? Are those 4? I think so. And it's wanting to stick. Stand by. Okay, so that wiggly wobbly headphone jack is not screwed on to the PC board. Son of a monkey. Unplug your amplifier before sticking your fingers into it, boys and girls. Okay, now that we learned that. That power switch is hot, by the way, so don't stick your fingers in there. Okay, so I wonder if this needs to achieve ground on the chassis itself. That may just be a thing. But no, this is plastique, so this would be isolated from the chassis. So that headphone jack is isolated from the chassis. That's not your problem. Okay. And now somebody wants to talk to me. Okay, so update. I do get sound out of the headphone jack. When this is unplugged here from that grounds the input jack, and the thing goes to nearly dead silence. And it seems like there's like a really high impedance connection here on the input jack. It's like this, it just always seems to make crappy connections, so that jack's going to need to be cleaned. But at least I can hear it. This thing has a lot of gain in it. Okay, so the sound's at least making it to the headphone jack. And so let's see if when we unplug the headphone jack, if the sound is, you know, going back to the power module. Okay, I figured it out. At least I thought I did. Yeah, I just got I got crappy connections here. Okay. So. Okay, so fishing around in this anyway. Let me just turn off the noise. It should be ready to amplify a guitar now. Yeah. It wants to work now. Okay, fishing around in here, I kept thinking it had to be some kind of way for this to be disconnected from that, but that didn't seem to work, so I just started poking around. You know, sometimes when you're just poking around on the opposite side of this 120 volts that got me earlier, this is all like 15 or 20 volts, so you can just kind of poke around with a stick or with your finger, and lo and behold, when I poked around at the IC chip, I believe there was a little bit of corrosion or junk between the pins of this power IC, and it was very, very close together, and that was actually causing it to sort of flop out. When I poked at it a little bit, it sprang to life. It really surprised me. So yeah, go figure that one. Kind of a fluke, but I'd rather have a weird fluke with success than to have, you know, some kind of epic fail. So I'll keep monkeying with this, but I think we're going to put this one back together and say good luck. We're going to clean a lot of contacts and stuff like that, but I believe this was actually just some dirt or crud or something conductive. Going back to the really old computer days, the comment, a bug in the system, was actually literal, where somebody had found like a roach or a grasshopper or something that was actually crossing some traces, and that was all, you know, high voltage vacuum tube stuff back in those days. But anything that's pulling your voltage down out of where it should be in that range is going to affect your ability to operate. How weird. Okay, so that's obviously, it's a little, you know, what is it, 8-inch speaker practice amp. That's the without the distortion at like half volume. Let's see if the distortion on this sounds particularly awesome. allegedly 10 is your heavy metal sound. Does that sound like metal to you? I don't know that it sounds like metal, but it sounds like a practice amp. So we went from not working to working. And okay, so that's the weirdest thing I've seen in our Repair-A-Thon so far. Can I really explain it that well? Not really, but I was essentially poking around with the stick and I found the problem. And if it was a bad solder connection or anything on that chip, poking at it with the stick further would have exacerbated the problem, and it did not. So I think there was some little conductive piece of rubbish that was between the pins on that IC, the output IC. And logically that could do it. So one more down and I guess we move on to the next one. Okay kids, next on our list is a Traynor TS20. Don't adjust your camera, that is smudged. So this one actually works. You have a master, a reverb, a treble, a middle, and or volume, bass, middle, treble. Pretty simple amp, but it's a well-made solid-state amp. I will give it that. Looks like a 12-inch CTS speaker. It's one of those square magnet ones, so that's usually associated with CTS. Yeah, I could read the code if I really wanted, but this comes from the Great White North. And see, it already works. So there's the high gain, there's the low gain, and bass works, treble works. Does the reverb work? Yes, it does. So everything on this works. When you turn the volume down, there is some real low-level hum on it, and this is a 70s era amp. So there's two of these here. One of them hums more than the other, but we're just going to basically pop them apart and see if they are due for just some age-related maintenance. Okay, boys and girls, let's marvel at the construction of this amplifier. The power transistors are screwed directly down to the chassis and then plug onto a little socket plug thing here that goes up to the board. There's a reverb tank over here, and there's only one board, and it is on the other side of the potentiometers. That's interesting construction, I will give you that. I see some other op amps and transistors and things on this board, but in order to get to this board we'll have to, drop it. The transformer plugs into it over here. I can see the filter caps here. That's probably where our slight low-level hum's coming from, but it's not huge, it's not bad. And I will probably just take the inventory of the capacitors for this, and then we will order some. Because we have two of them, and one of them hums worse than the other. But these amps are, despite being solid-state amps, are not free, throwaway amps per se. These are generally between $250 and $300 in good shape, and this is in good shape. So, it seems like a very plausible repair and service. So, I'll pull the knobs off, unscrew the connectima bobs. These four should be what holds the chassis in the face here, and that should drop back and we can look at the capacitors. Okay, so I have this circuit board generally lifted to where I can see what's going on. Seems like pretty decent components. There's a TI op amp, another op amp here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 caps in the preamp system, and the 2 caps over here. Reality is if we just change these it'll probably stop the humming, but considering that these other caps are, you know, nickel and dime caps, I mean, those are probably, you know, chump change. It seems to be a very well designed eyelet board, and interestingly enough, it looks like you could use either a radial or an axial with the way they designed that. So that's really cool, but the caps that I have are all like 63 volt and 50 volt, and they're going to be big, so I won't be able to smoosh it back up against the backboard there the way that it is now. So that's what that is. Let's get an assessment of what capacitors are in here and get that stuff ordered, and I suppose on part 2 we'll have the recapping of 2 of these Traynors as well as some additional amplifiers.